Larry Wilmore.
Thank you very much. I am honored to be here, Mr. President, distinguished faculty, honored guests, parents, class of 2018. And I'd like to start off by saying, I mean this with all due respect. What up, class of 2018? What up? Go Panthers! Wakanda forever! Sorry, that was for me. Enjoy it, man. This is your moment. Enjoy it. Seriously. I truly am honored to be here, though. And actually, I was a bit shocked. When I was asked, I was like, what, did somebody cancel or something? Sure enough, somebody did, so thank you very much. Very nice. Worked out well. By the way, how about a hand for President Strupa, man? What an awesome guy. Everything about him is just delicia. I mean, even the name, isn't it? I mean, so fun. Just Strupa. It sounds like something you would eat. Have you tried the Strupa? It's delicious. It's okay. And I wanted to tell you, President, it's actually ironic. This is true, you guys, that I'm speaking at Chapman today because I almost went to school here. This is a true story. It was, well, thank you very much. In the cheap seats, thank you. No, this is true, guys. It was one of my choices in high school, and I would have attended, but a brother's bank account was kind of thin in those days, you know. But it's funny. Wait, hold on. It's funny because, what are we laughing? Oh, they're joking. Okay, this is great. I'm getting last by not even doing anything. This is awesome. But it's funny because my counselor, for whatever reason, was convinced I was going to Chapman, right? And I knew I couldn't afford it, and after a while, I was just too embarrassed to correct him. So I kind of forgot about it. And at my graduation, I swear to God, it said, Larry Wilmore, who will be attending Chapman University next year. Everyone's like, oh, congratulations. I'm like, thank you. I knew it was a lie, but I had gone too far at that point, right? And this is true. So a couple of years later, I'm at my old high school, and I see my old counselor, right? And I'm trying to avoid him because I think now he's going to come up to me and say, I checked, you lied. You did not go to Chapman. But of course, he didn't say anything, you know, and I thought I was in the clear. And at the last minute, he goes, so, how are things at Chapman? And I'm thinking, at this point, why keep the ruse going? I mean, it's not like I'm in high school anymore. He doesn't hold anything over me. But I couldn't help it, guys. I'd go, things are going great at Chapman. I still did it, which technically is not a lie. Chapman is a great school. Things technically were going great at Chapman, right? So I didn't go, but I'm here now, baby. I made it. I made it to Chapman. Yeah. So anyhow, well, I guess I should, I don't know, give you some advice or something, I guess. Since I'm here, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. I am the guy who lied about going to Chapman, so. So I've been doing a lot of careful thinking about what I should share with you, as well as a healthy amount of last-minute, panic-stricken, procrastination-induced, quickly cobbled together words of wisdom. I like the balance of the two dynamics. You're college students, you know what I'm talking about. But if I can give you an overall view first, there's two things I'd like you to take away from this evening. Number one, do everything I'm about to tell you. Don't think about it. Do it. Trust me, you'll be happy you did, okay? Number two, don't do anything anybody tells you, including me. Believe in your own judgment. You'll be glad you did. I know they sound contradictory, but trust me, it all kind of works out. All right, there you have it. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. That's all I got. Actually, that was very nice. She's like, bye. We have Cardi B graduating tonight. Thank you very much. That's very nice. Thanks. Hey, oh, you like that? You guys, I don't know about you guys. But I thought I've had many people and many things that have helped me along the way in life, and I'll share some of my favorites. And some of you may find it helpful, some not, but hopefully there'll be something in here for everybody. So one of the first things I came up with as a guide, and I came up with this years ago, you guys. I didn't actually make it up. I mean, these sayings are out there, but I kind of put them together as kind of a makeshift philosophy, right? And here's what it is. It kind of helps me when my brain gets too cluttered, okay? It's three things. And the first, by the way, the first covers a good 95% of every situation, okay? It is what it is. I'm talking about 95%, kids. It's true. Whenever a situation leaves you vexed, it is what it is 95%. Well, how come it is what it is? Well, I don't understand. It is what it is. Well, why isn't this? It is what it is. Well, how come we can't afford to send me to Chapman? It is what it is. Sorry, I revisited some pain. Now, the second one covers about 4% after the 95%, okay? And it's for those times when you feel a bit flummoxed, right? And you're unsure about your course of action. Ready? Do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do. Guys, I'm telling you, this fills so many gaps, okay? But how do I do what you gotta do? But what if I have to do what you gotta do? But my job wants me to move, do what you gotta do. But without kids, I have to do what you gotta do. But if I can't go to Chapman, what if I do what you gotta do? It is what it is. Do what you gotta do. And they kind of work together too in some ways. Why does it take so long to become a doctor? It is what it is. How am I gonna pay off my student loans? Do what you gotta do. It's so hard dating in your 20s. It is what it is. Maybe I should just give up on relationships and just be a virgin. Do what you gotta do. Believe me, my 20s was full of doing what I had to do, you guys. Hey, stop it right now. Stop it. Okay. Now the third pearl of pseudo-wisdom covers the 1% that's left. And it's for when you're trying to take it to the next level, right? Or see some kind of improvement in your life, or just unsatisfied with where you're heading. Play better. It is what it is. Do what you gotta do. Play better. Man, gotta find a way to make more money. Play better. Can't seem to hold on to a relationship. Play better. Show business is hard, man. How do I break in? Play better. Or do better plays. That one actually kind of works both ways. Kind of works better. Got some theater nerds. Thank you very much. Of course you put them way over there. If you smell some weed coming over here, you know. Hey! No one would ever do that. It's graduation. Now, guys, I love play better, okay? Play better forces you to put the intention on yourself and put your destiny in your own hands. So many times we feel, especially as young people, that the forces that control everything are against us, that the system is rigged, the man is always trying to keep a brother down. Well, actually, that one is true. Brother can't even barbecue in a park anymore. That's what they call it, the gov. But even if all these things are true, there's no better way to give you a shot at whatever your target is than focusing on your own improvement. And it's funny because this credo is always used in sports and no one ever questions it, right? What do the Rockets have to do to beat the Warriors? Play better. Well, what can Lonzo do to have a breakout year for the Lakers? Play better. And somebody kidnap his dad. Seriously, I'm sick of that guy. But rarely do we apply this simple logic to our own life circumstances. It's amazing how many of us don't take the time to really think about our lives in a way where we have control over our destiny. Many of us will just fall into something that seems like the right thing at the right time, and then years later say, how the hell did I get here? But the fact is, you guys, that most people spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do planning their lives. It is what it is. Do what you gotta do. Play better. Now, I know this sounds simple, but there have been many really rough times in my own life when I've had doubts about so many things, thoughts about quitting, etc. And just sitting at home feeling sorry for myself, why? And then it is what it is would just pop into my head. And I would laugh and just keep going. Now, one of the questions that many of you face in the coming years is figuring out, what are you going to do with your life, right? Do I try to make a lot of money? Or should I find something meaningful? Do I want to be my own boss? Or do I want to work for somebody? Do I do what feels safe? Or do I want to take a risk? Do people see me more as a Laurel, even though I know for a fact that I'm a Yanny? Right? It's a little topical humor, Mr. President. Well, there aren't easy answers to any of these because it's hard to get clarity about your life when you're young. I struggled with these myself. And then I was lucky enough to go through an experience while in college that helped to give me some direction in my life. And I wrote a short essay about it a couple of years ago for a special event. And if you'll indulge me, I'll share it with you here. And it's called Why I Haven't Worked in 30 Years. I'm sorry we can't afford it. I know what you mean. In fact, the Kenny Brews down the street were saying the same thing, but once they took a look at all the volume library had to offer in one book and weighed that against how important education is to them for their children, they told me they couldn't afford not to get it. I would love to show you a few of the things that changed their minds. Do you have a place where we can sit down? Sure, come on in. An answer to an objection. This is the term for one of the many memorized responses I learned to sell books door to door, along with dozens of other college students who made the same trip to Knoxville, Tennessee in the summer of '82. It was the summer before my final year in school. It was also the summer when I decided to never work for a living. There are many things I wanted to be and do when I was a kid. They included astronaut, athlete, scientist, magician, clergyman, comedian, teacher, psychologist, and actor. And it was normal for me to spend my free time working on a math puzzle, a basketball move, and a magic trick in the same afternoon. But whenever I thought seriously about what I wanted to do for a living, my mind always divided my future into two possible roads, the practical and the dream. Now, as a product of a broken family and as a result of having spent my formative years with 5 siblings and a single mom at the edges of poverty, it felt irresponsible of me to not think practically. As much as I was tempted to try a life in showbiz, my ears were always filled with, get your education, get a good job, play by the rules. And the thought of following my dreams and becoming a comedian filled this Catholic school-raised kid with legacy guilt. I remember one clarifying moment I had as a teen when my brother and I looked up at our ceiling one day and saw a hole looking back at us and realizing that our roof had literally caved in. We looked at each other and vowed this would never happen to us in our adult life. So the question I formed early on in my life was not where I was going to end up, but how. So the summer of '82, I was in my 3rd year in college, a theater major, not at Chapman, unfortunately. Feeling directionless and not confident at all. I felt like I was possibly throwing away an important time in my life, chasing a foolish dream, and not listening to the well-meaning people around me who continually reminded me to have something I can fall back on. Now, my response to that has always been that I didn't view my life as a series of fallbacks, but more as a series of leap forwards. And even though I always delivered that line with the confident smile and smirk, lurking underneath was terror and unease. So one day before the end of the school, I was wandering aimlessly through the halls when I came upon an ad that promised thousands of dollars to students who were willing to spend their summer selling books door to door in another part of the country. I was in desperate need of money and an escape, and I thought I might be able to make enough to even buy a car. So like the Southwest Airlines ad that says, "Want to get away?" I did and signed up. I feel healthy, I feel happy, I feel terrific. This was the battle cry we were taught to say every morning before we went out to sell books. It was one of the many scripted ploys we were given as budding young salespeople about to be unleashed into the world. Students from all over the country were gathered together for a week in Knoxville to learn all the tricks and patter you need to convince Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's checkbook to buy some books from you, even though their faces kept telling you no. Right? Now, it was an exhilarating time. Every morning we would gather together in a hotel conference room to hear inspirational speeches, pep talks, survival strategies, and play out possible scenarios. At the end of the week, we were told which part of the country would be selling books. I was going to Rhode Island, guys. I couldn't wait. Now, as a theater major, thank you very much, it was easy for me to memorize all the stiff greetings and answers to the objections we were given. And if Mr. and Mrs. Johnson thought they were going to resist my memorized charms, they were mistaken. I was going to crush this. I felt healthy. I felt happy. I felt terrific. I felt horrible. I was terrible at selling books. Nothing I did seemed to work. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson did not care about my answers to their objections. They said no, and they meant it. Within a week, I was devastated. My goal was to try and sell 6 books a day, but 3 at the absolute minimum. I'm not sure if I sold 2 books for the entire week. After a month, it was not much better. All of my hopes and dreams of making enough money to buy a car were slipping away faster than common sense at a Trump rally. Sorry. You guys knew you were hiring me, sorry. No matter how much I healthy, happy, terrific my mornings, by the afternoons I felt ready to give up. And one day, this is a true story, while riding my bike through an intersection in Fall River, I was sideswiped by a car and was sent flying to the sidewalk. I sat stunned for a few minutes, not quite believing what had just happened. Amazingly, I wasn't hurt. I told the distraught driver I was okay and slowly climbed back on my bike, feeling dazed and disoriented. Within minutes, I was crying uncontrollably. What was I doing here? I hated selling books. I hated Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. I wanted to go home. But for some reason, I talked myself into staying. I think it was a combination of hearing the sympathetic, supportive, but somewhat disappointed tone in my mom's voice as I told her my plans in between my sobs, and the cold realization that I was about to quit and give up. Something my ultra-competitive athletic side would never have dreamed of doing. I had never given up on anything in my life. So I sucked it up, and I literally climbed back onto my bike and kept going. And it's funny, but there's something about honestly admitting defeat that kind of frees you up. I still hated selling books, but no longer let that stop me from knocking on doors. The rest of the summer was a somewhat surreal combination of experiencing the frustration of not being very good at sales, the exhilaration of the freedom of accepting that, but enjoying my time anyway, and the fascination of spending time with strangers in their own living rooms. I met so many incredible people that summer in various degrees of struggle and success, and focusing on them really helped me take the attention off of myself and any pity that tried to creep into my bones. There was one family in particular who had such a profound effect on me that I still think about them from time to time. It was towards the end of the summer, and I was in a particularly poor section of Fall River, and there were many first-generation Portuguese families in this area, many of whom did not speak much English, and I was struggling to get people to even listen to my entire pitch. Now, about to pack it in one day, I instead climbed up some stairs to one last door. I said my pitch, and to my surprise, the gentle-seeming man let me in and led me to his living room. I was so excited. I hadn't been in the living room all day, and I tore into my pitch. Now, as I was talking, he was joined by his wife and their 3 small children. I really hammed up for those kids, who literally grabbed the colorful children's books that were part of the collection right from my hands. So sensing victory and happy that I might end up, my day on a great sale, I went right into the close. And although the father's English was spare, as soon as I mentioned how much it would cost, I could see his face completely understand the price. And in a poignant, silent moment, I looked into his disappointed eyes and immediately knew that he really couldn't afford these books. So I dispensed with any rote answers to objections, not wanting to damage his pride, thanked him politely, and got up to leave. And as I was walking to the door, I noticed there was not one book in that house. And I was really struck by this sight. And the air of excitement that had filled the room moments before now took on a different meaning. I tried giving the dad my samples. We took orders and delivered the books at the end of the summer, but his pride wouldn't allow it, and I left, cried all the way home. I guess I cried a lot in those days. I spent a lot of time in many homes that summer, and the overwhelming recurring theme I noticed was how many people seemed unhappy with their lives. Maybe it was their choice of job, choice of spouse, or just a general unease about the future, but it was unmistakable. I vowed to myself that I would choose happiness and fulfillment above all else in my life's direction. And I knew it didn't matter how much money I made, how much status I had, or what kind of things I could accumulate. I had to pour myself into doing something meaningful, or there was no point. I decided to choose a path for myself, and whatever I did for a living was the physical manifestation of walking down that path. And I remember saying to myself, I'm never going to work again. I'm only going to walk. My last few days of the summer were spent delivering the book orders to the families whose objections were somehow melted by my answers. There weren't a lot of deliveries, and I didn't make enough money to buy that car I wanted, but I felt good. On the last day, I carried one extra set of books I had ordered myself up a set of stairs and laid them down quietly on the welcome mat at the front door. Luckily, no one was home, and I stealthily tiptoed down the stairs and got out of there, hoping I wouldn't run into anybody. And as I rode away on my bike, I couldn't stop smiling, imagining how excited those 3 kids were going to be when they got home. So that's the essay, thank you. And I want to repeat a phrase from that essay. I decided to choose a path for myself, and whatever I did for a living was the physical manifestation of walking down that path. Guys, sometimes people will ask me, when did I consider myself a success? And I tell them, the minute I decided to follow my life's passion. So success wasn't a destination, it was a journey. That's what the path is. That's why I say I haven't worked in 30 years, because when you choose a path for yourself, it never feels like work, only a walk. Now, one of the biggest obstacles you guys will face in the years ahead is fear. Fear can be so destructive in our lives. On a global scale, fear is at the root of war. It's at the root of hatred, of bigotry, of division, and of some of the ugliest human movements. On a personal scale, fear is usually the culprit that prevents us from doing the things in life that we are meant to do but are afraid for whatever reason. And fear can come from anywhere. It can come from your parents who mean well. It can come from friends who think they're being supportive. It can come from the culture. It can definitely come from the haters, right? Haters love throwing fear at you. But the most paralyzing type of fear always starts inside of us. Here's what fear does to your life. I want you to remember this, guys. Fear wants you to be a prisoner of your past and a terrorist of your future. Okay, I'll say it again. Fear wants you to be a prisoner of your past and a terrorist of your future. The class of 2018, I want you guys to be fearless in your lives, okay? I want you to do the things you never imagined you can do. I want you to be the people you always knew you should be. I want you to create the world that we all wish it could be. And I want you to all have the happiness you were absolutely intended to have. I want you to be fearless. And while you're being fearless, I want you to try to remember this. Don't let your feelings bring you down. You cannot rely on how you feel about something at any particular time to get you through life. Could you imagine if you had relied on your feelings to get your degree? You never would have showed up to class. Focus your life on what your actions should be and where you need to show up. And no matter what happens, just keep showing up. They won't tell you this, but there were many times when your parents did not feel like parenting. You were very low on their list of things they were enthused about. Okay? But it didn't matter how they felt. They showed up. So show up in your own life the way your parents showed up for you. I wish I had known the value of showing up for yourself during my school years. Now let me finish my not getting into Chapman story. There's actually a little more to it than not being able to afford the tuition. See, I was always a really smart kid growing up. The other kids used to call me the professor. I wore glasses. I was always kind of nerdy. Seemed like I had the answer for everything. I was always the teacher's pet. It was really terrible. But I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I can remember in the 3rd grade, I would finish my math test so quickly, the teacher would let me correct the other students' tests. I know, I hate me too. Yeah. And I always prided myself on not only getting good grades, but being one of the best. And it was never a competition with other students. It was always a competition with myself. I was one of the top students in my 8th grade class and got a scholarship to go to Catholic high school. But when I got to high school, things changed a bit. I always felt different, but that difference was magnified here. It was mostly a middle class to upper middle class student body, but everybody seemed rich to me. My parents were divorced, and my mom was raising 6 kids the best she could, but we had 0 money. When you've had tuna helper for Christmas, it's hard to relate to somebody's ski vacation over winter break. I was also one of the few black kids at a predominantly white school, and I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood. So I never really felt like I belonged in either. I mean, white kids would make fun of me for being black, and black kids would make fun of me for not being black enough. I remember I used to get teased for not talking black, and I used to think, well, that doesn't make sense, because I'm black, and I'm talking, ergo, your brother shouldn't say ergo. I don't know. And even though I got involved in many things at school, I never felt like I truly fit in. I used to say about school, I feel like I'm at a family reunion, but I'm not in family. And my home life was not any better. The emotional toll on my mom in those days was pretty bad. And looking back, I can probably see now that she probably had a bit of depression. And I was frustrated because there was nothing I could do about it, and it made me feel powerless. So my schoolwork started slipping in my sophomore year, and by the time I was a senior, this is true, I barely had the grades to graduate. I just couldn't focus on studying. I chose every opportunity to escape into sports or theater or just making my friends laugh. In fact, if not for the generosity of my history teacher, who allowed me to entertain the class for my final so I wouldn't get an F, I'm not sure I would have graduated. He really was an angel. So the truth of the matter is, I intentionally misled my counselor into thinking I was serious about Chapman because I was so ashamed of myself for doing so poorly in school. Money had little to do with it. I knew I didn't have the grades to get in. See, I was fully aware of my potential, but I was so afraid in those days. Afraid to be myself, afraid to be authentic, afraid of the truth, afraid of the future. Just afraid. Fear and shame. Fear was keeping me a prisoner of the past, and shame was terrorizing my future. I dealt with those feelings into college, but there was something about knocking on doors that summer in Rhode Island, regardless of my fears, that taught me so much. And seeing how much alike most people were, even with the most striking surface differences. So I've never let fear and shame guide me since that time. I mean, they still pop up now and then, but when they do, I just look at them and say, sorry, not interested. Like so many of my non-buying book customers. I want to thank you for inviting me here today and indulging me with these anecdotes from my past and attempts at advice. And I'd like to leave you with one last thing to keep in mind when you're on your journey. Don't just look at your life's work in terms of what you can get out of it. Instead, approach it in terms of what you can put into it. Make a contribution in everything you do. Pour your passion, love, desire, integrity, intelligence, and generosity of spirit into a world that desperately needs it. The world is a hostile place. It is what it is. And it takes almost all of your energy just to stay sane from all the crap. Do what you gotta do. But know that whatever your authentic self is, whatever it is that makes you different and you stand out, whatever might make you the object of ridicule from others or cause fear and shame, embrace that. That uniqueness is gold. So take that, throw that into the world, and know that as of right now, class of 2018, you are already a success. Success is not in your future. It is a present condition. All you have to do now is get on your path, walk that walk, always keep it 100% real, wave to the haters, acknowledge your obstacles, sorry, not interested, and let your life not just be an example for others to follow, but an inspiration to fill people's hearts of a life well lived. Play better. Thank you very much. Best of luck.